Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Woohoo!
Hello.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for introducing yourself from Discord, as we didn't get much from you in the pre-show.
Yeah,
Excellent.
wake up, Discord.
Yeah, excellent. Just the kind of response I wanted. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known? Make sure that you know who this is. Sleeping Warrior. Of course I know who it is. Why is it giving me that warning that I should know who the person is? I suppose maybe people let their links out like they did back in the day and get porn bombed. Hey, Anthony.
He's from Liverpool.
Oh, I know why it gave me the warning. It's because it's somebody from Liverpool. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh.
You never walk alone.
Do you trust this person? Are you really sure? I know they're on your friends list. I know you've communicated them before, but the guy is from Liverpool. Therefore, caution should be taken.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we do. Hey, Anthony.
Hey, Anthony.
It's just new PC, new setup, but making sure things are working. It seems to be working. Woo!
Excellent. Almost same here. Yeah, it gave me a warning before you joined the show, which is the first. I don't think I've ever seen that before, Anthony. It was saying, this person's definitely dodgy. You should be aware. If you're not, I'm going to let you know. So, G+, let me know how dodgy you were.
I think it's because I've got a new VPN and I've not turned it off. If you notice, it's not a symbol.
That makes more sense. Okay, well, that's not quite as amusing. Can you help out with housekeeping, as you haven't been on for a while?
Go on.
Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth, Anthony, or anybody else in G+ or Discord? Or join in the chat if you're watching live. Very warm welcome to you all.
It's only in the maths, isn't it? If you calculate it into a geometric edge and then make an adjustment for refraction and call it a non-geometric edge that's refracted, then it only appears in the maths. That's literally where it comes from.
Yep, math based off a flat plane, though.
That's correct. I don't know if Anthony's well up to date with the whole elevation angle argument. I'm pretty sure he is.
I've been half listening. It's like I'll catch it one day, miss it another day, catch it another day, miss it another day.
John signed in on one of his kids' account. Kids been using the computer for gaming, eh, John?
As long as you're not displaying yourself as a cat, John. Did you see that lawyer in America that turned up to a hearing as a cat filter on his computer?
Oh, how highly unprofessional. Yeah, my kid's been using the computer. I'm really sorry, Your Honour.
Did you not see it, Nathan?
I'm sure I have caught that at some point. Yes, it does sound familiar.
Hilarious.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Again, feel free to join in if you're in the chat and the live stream.
Axial rotation. Well, there's a problem there because one of the globe claims, it's a begging the question fallacy, but one of the globe claims is that pilots fly, and I think ships also use great circle routes, right? Which means that they have to completely avoid the South Pacific for no particular reason. So they all fly great circle routes. So how could you fly a great circle route, right? And how could you claim great circle routes and also claim globiolus, right? Which would mean trying to follow that line into different latitudes. How could you ever follow that distance in that line and also deal with out rotation underneath you?
Well, you wouldn't, in the respect that you're
couldn't have
describing
to.
it. You'd have to. Your whole outlook on travel through the air would be very different. So what we have when you say Great Circle Route, there's many different routes that planes take, and they're like roads. In other words, they stick to pretty much set, coordinates in terms of where they're going to go from where to where, the waypoints as they call them. Well, they're like roads in the sky, aren't they? They're just travelling a set, from here, then to here, then to airport. Well, that type of travel would be completely different if Earth was turning beneath things in the air, as is claimed to be the case on a sphere Earth that's spinning. We're claimed to have Coriolis drift. Well, if that was the case, then you wouldn't ever want to travel anything other than west for a start, because you'd never get there.
Yeah, but like they have this claim of globiolus, which involves north-south flights supposedly being affected, right? Not east-west. No, there's no east-west problems. In their globiolus, it's only north-south. Now, they have absolutely no data or evidence to ever prove that, and it's debunked by any flight that goes north-south. But the point is that their claim doesn't work with Great Circle routes, because the Great Circle route is supposed to be the best and shortest route. So, which means a plane starts at this point, at this time, and ends up at this point, this other point, at this other time. And that's the exact distances that they're flying, and it has that exact speed, an exact average speed, and whatever else for it to get from point A to point B in a straight line distance, right? Which would be a curved line for them. But the point is that Great Circle routes and globiolus can't work together.
Well, great.
You can't have two. Go on.
Between 2 points, A and B, straight line, right? Now, the only reason that a great circle route exists is to create it on a ball. But this thing doesn't happen. When we navigate, we go to a straight line between 2 points. But this is just a reification or a rug pull, really, that you're taking this straight line. And the only time it ever becomes circle is when you place it into the heliocentric ball model. There is no circle. There is no continuance of it around the ball. It's just assumed that. But fundamentally, they're straight lines.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not arguing that point. I totally understand that. But in their vernacular, these are circle routes that a plane takes. But that plane goes in a straight, when I say straight, it follows a line, right, without deviation, and it gets from point A to point B, which is an exact distance along that line, in the exact time it would take them at the speed they fly to go that exact distance. But then they also turn around and claim globiolus, which means that there is a north-south deviation happens with their globiolus. My point is that they can't claim great circle routes and globiolus together, because one debunks the other. You can't have a great circle route where you get from point A to point B following this circle line and this exact distance at the exact speed that you're going for the exact time it takes, and also be dealing with a change in rotation speed underneath you. I know it's globiolus, it's nonsense. But the point is that they can't claim both at the same time because they contradict each other. That's my point.
So just for the audience's benefit, globiolus is the claim of an anti-flat earther. Now, somebody in the comments, I can't credit them because I can't remember who it was that said this, but somebody asked me in the comments of my own video, what's the difference between a glober and an anti-flat earther? And before I got a chance to reply, somebody from the comment section replied and said, a glober sticks to the globe rhetoric, an anti-flat earther doesn't. And I thought that is a very good summary. So when we talk about globiolus, We're talking about a claim that flies in the face of the actual globeretric claim, which is Coriolis effect, which we don't experience. But because we don't experience, they have to beg the question that we turn with Earth and atmosphere turning together, but simultaneously have a drift that's experienceable from the projectile, in the projectile, when travelling north or south. Now, this is a anti-flat Earth claim, not a globe claim. Globiolis is what we fondly named it, or Brian fondly named it.
You got to think of the anti-flat earthers as like DJs. They're the ones who like to remix the story and have their own story and debate that, as opposed to sticking to the mainstream. They're the DJs of the party. Good morning, guys.
Some bad DJs.
Yep.
And they throw Neil
They only
deGrasse
play
under
the
the bus.
shitty records, right?
Well, they like to keep playing the same record as much as possible. That's for sure.
But there is a bigger divide between globe believers, that's standard normies who might have an interest in cosmology, or, I don't know, astronomy, and they've just got a vague interest in the subject and have retained whatever they were taught in school about the globe. That's a globe believer or glober, if they come here to debate it. That's what we'd term them as. Whereas there's a wide, massive, great big cavity between that, i.e. somebody who just claims, yeah, of course Earth turns underneath for us to observe Coriolis drift. That's what globe claims. And somebody who says, no, Earth and atmosphere are assumed to turn together in violation of several natural laws. And the effect we observe when we violate these natural laws in our description of something that doesn't happen. Blah, 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 blah. So that's a big difference. A very stark difference when you come to Coriolis effect, because they're denying the effect in the first instance. There's less of a divide between your normie average person who's a globe believer and, say, a Scientologist than there is between a normie globe believer and an anti-flat earther. There's a bigger difference between anti-flat earth and globe believing and globe believing and Scientology. Scientology is much, much closer to actual globe rhetoric than anti-flat earth is.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Nathan, you actually coined the term globiolis, not me. I made a video and I detailed it, but you coined the term.
Oh, really? Oh, copyright Nathan Oakley 2019, whatever it was that I copyrighted it.
I'm sure it was Arwen.
I'm sure Brian thought about it 2 weeks before I did.
No, I specifically objected against it. I did.
That was it.
Fair enough. Let's move on. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
What is the sun?
I don't know.
It's
Well-
over there. We got an angle, and that's it.
We do have an angle to it. Elevation angle. Doesn't mean we have its height, though. What's the distance? Anybody? Feel free to join in from Discord. Anybody know the distance to the sun?
Well, if the two-way speed of light has been measured, and sun rays come in parallel due to that measurement being correct, and angles are possible off of a curved baseline, and the horizon is geometric.
It's falling apart, this, Brian.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So no, I don't have that. Nick.
Wow, that's a hell of a list, man.
Okay, let's work our way through that. Okay, what was the first one?
The first one was if the two-way speed of light has been measured.
Okay, has the two-way
it hasn't.
speed of light been measured? Or the one-way?
No,
What about the one-way speed
No.
of light?
no.
Okay, so next up, well, it was actually last on the list. If we have a geometric horizon, do we have a geometric physical leading edge of a sphere called Earth curve for a horizon?
No, we don't.
Only in the
You said if we can measure an elevation angle from a curved baseline. Is there any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
No, there isn't.
There was one more.
Metrically impossible.
There was one more that I've missed, Brian.
Parallel sun rays.
Oh yes, do sunlight
Parallel light
rays come in parallel?
No, they don't.
Well, that's a big problem then. If you've got to have all of those things in your back of your mind first to give you distance to the sun, then I'm not buying any of it. Wouldn't the Distance also involved the derivation of dual radii by way of a flat plane elevation angle measurement to Polaris, then imposed on Venus. Also.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not looking good for anybody who thinks they know how far the sun is. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, you
my-
require a naturally occurring phenomena.
My
that you can
hostile
actually vary.
witness. My hostile witness will be the man himself, Newton. I feign no hypothesis. Thank you.
If, right, you were able to leave the surface of a spinning sphere and maintain your tangential speed, wouldn't that supposed force have an effect on you?
Supposed force? Sorry, do you want to clarify what you mean by supposed force?
As in, it's not real. But if I was to go into accepting all sorts of bits, like tangential retention of speed, as soon as I fly off on a straight line on a ball, that force that apparently was keeping me there will adjust my tangential speed. So I would never have a tangential speed. That would always be pulled down, wouldn't it?
It's the conservation of stationary momentum.
You got it. This is the trouble. If they have these things, then they make the other claims. So we were talking about differential Coriolis or globiolis there, yeah? So they have that to make up for the fact that flight times aren't. So they make a weak excuse up. But the consequence of it is first of all, to deny what conservation of linear momentum is, then they'll confuse it. But in wrapping that up, if you live in a world with G, it does have an impact on that. If you're traveling in a straight line and the ground underneath you is curving away because you've maintained a tangential speed, then that G will have negative effects on your tangent. It will stop it being. It'll make it curve, won't it?
Yes. It's a big problem. You'd have to account for it if there was a force that isn't really a force, but you can think of it as a force, and if you did and it was, it would present problems. But it doesn't. Happy days.
But the point being, it would be applicable in what Brian was talking about in terms of globiolis. If you were going to do that, then you would have to incorporate it in that. It wouldn't just be the differential of the tangential speed based on your London latitude. It would be counted by how long you've been there, how much that's affected it, and how much it's burnt through your carried on tangential.
And it wouldn't last forever.
Well,
You know,
But it does in their world, doesn't it? That's another contradiction. When you see Lewin and that doing it in the labs with a little train track and you pop the ball up, or tie a man down with his guys on a trampoline, doesn't last forever, but it does in their world. It does for an aeroplane. It's constantly going sideways at 1,000 miles an hour if it's flying north to south.
Just happens to be tracking the ground below it in violation of the first law, increasing its velocity like the air.
well, yeah. I mean, the airplane has to. If you're talking about linear speeds per latitude, you're talking about a breakdown of the distance around that latitude as a miles per hour speed. So if you started off at the 60th parallel north and you were flying south to the equator, then you would have to be heading, like, you would have, if you were going from London to Lagos, let's just say, you'd have to take off in your plane, somehow take off on a rotating globe, and you'd have to, according to like globiolis, you would have to head straight out over Schiphol in the Netherlands and straight for, let's say, Asia or the Middle East to meet up with Lagos. That would have to be your flight path. You couldn't fly due south to Lagos. It just would be impossible, because when you get there, you'd be in America or something, South America or something. Do you know what I mean?
Different continents are coming to you as you fly through the air. Well, your observation of that from the ground, if you could see the aeroplane, is the effect of it seeming to take a curve when really it's you moving beneath. That's the actual claim the globe makes, Coriolis effect. But when we point out that from the ground planes don't drift because Earth's turning underneath them, they have to come up with an excuse for why we don't see the effect the globe claims will have. Hence the transition from globe believer to anti-flat earther in their defiance of the claim that we have drift, 15 degrees an hour of it. We don't, but because we don't, they have to make an excuse and assume that Earth's turning anyway, and that the item leaving Earth will retain its angular momentum. Completely absurd, because as Adam's just detailed, it would be linear. It would come off and fly off in a straight line if you're going to claim it's conserving anything. Certainly not angular, because that would mean that it's
Now,
rotating after it leaves the ground.
Stationary
momentum.
Yeah, but they're not even claiming angular momentum. They're actually claiming linear momentum. They actually do claim linear momentum. The anti-flat earthers. They can't claim angular momentum.
Right, they've claimed linear
an
with
east to
the
west.
title angular. I realise they are claiming linear, but they're saying angular.
Well, no, I've come across this with a load of them. They won't say which one. They either won't say which momentum they're claiming to be conserving, or they say linear. They can't say angular because that would be a rotation, right, from west to east.
But they don't have a description of what they describe, because what they're actually describing is something leaving a rotating platform and then staying directly above whatever portion it's supposed to stay above if nothing's affecting it in any way, shape or form other than the engine's pushing it along, which is what they experience. Well, they say no, it's not that we're supposed to experience anything that the globe's having take effect on it, unless you go from this latitude to that latitude. Then you'll experience a very minor deflection that you can easily counter in the plane. It's like, so the plane's countering it, we're not seeing anything, there's no drift to observe, there's no Coriolis effect, and it's not even possible to experience when we're travelling west. Okay, where does it say that in terms of globe rhetoric when they claim Coriolis effect, which is very specific? You observing things drift from a non-inertial turning reference frame claimed to be Earth. That just doesn't happen. Shout out to Godzilla37 who says, this super chat is for Virus and includes all the globe proof he has. Okay, done. Thank you for the super chat, Godzilla37.
Well, the thing about it is this, right? There's a couple of reasons why they can't claim, the anti-flat earthers can't claim angular momentum. One of them is that to retain angular momentum, you need to be physically attached to the rotating body, right? Number one. Number two, they have to claim linear momentum because their conservation of linear momentum, because their globiolus is involving miles per hour, right? Which is a linear speed, right? So that's two reasons that they have to claim linear momentum. But there's another, exactly what you just said a minute ago, Nathan. If you ask any of them to show any evidence for any of this absolute, total and utter horse manure, right, they'll tell you that some pilot like Wolfie just, makes the odd little adjustment on the joystick or whatever, when he's flying, just like a degree adjustment every couple of hours, just an old degree to the left or whatever. Do you know what I mean? This is the best they'll come up with. Like, they'll never produce any actual flight data that supports any of this nonsense. But they'll say that Wolfie accounts for it. And Wolfie will also claim to account for this not actual drift, if we all remember. They're crazy.
Right. Yeah, nuts. Until somebody understands what Coriolis is and calls them on it. Should we move on from gravity, as we've kind of got into and out of gravity while we were talking about Globiolus / the globe claim that doesn't happen of Coriolis effect at 15 degrees an hour? So, scientific evidence of gravity, I'll assume the answer is no. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Never.
No, there can't be. It's not possible.
No, they could, but they won't, because then they lose their happy little sandbox.
You don't know that. You don't know that.
How could they, Arwen? How could they manipulate their independent variable?
By threading outside of their presuppositional model.
Yeah, but how did they? Give me a claim they would make, and then describe how they would manipulate their independent variable.
Yeah, black holes, Arwen. Black holes.
Yeah, but that's only existent within their heliocentric presuppositional model. So
Orbiting binary stars.
not gonna
There you
be
go.
real.
Orbiting binary stars. There you go.
And binary stars, well, can you see them actually? Or is that just a rendering on some supposed telescope named Lucifer or something?
Let's take it as read that we can see them.
Okay. Well, if you're going to take it as read that you can see things, then you can't really very
Find
manipulate
bloody
the phenomena.
Ganymede falling around then as a moon in
What?
an assumed orbit. Just any light in the sky, Arwin. Bloody hell, I'm trying to move the conversation along here. It's like pulling
Okay,
teeth.
well, light in the sky. Look, like what causes starlight? Try to figure it out, right? Very manipulate magnetic situations. If you like create a different frequency type of magnetic fields or even sonic fields, maybe you could like somehow neutralize the starlight for you as an observer within that field, and that way you could very manipulate it locally.
But that doesn't, you're
That's
talking
not
about...
part of their presuppositional model. Yes, I know.
Yeah,
That's
but you're missing the point, though. But you're missing the point. That only might block something out for you, but that doesn't tell you what the star is or what the light is from the star. It's just you found out you can block the light here using these techniques.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Physically blocking
Hold on.
it,
Hold
though.
on.
It will
Let me get this
definitely
straight.
reveal the nature.
Hold on.
Yeah, but you're not very manipulating.
Hello. Is the claim cause it being blocked out? So let me get this straight. If I look at Jupiter and then close my eyes and then I open them again, are you saying that the cause of it is me opening and closing my eyes?
No, specifically not physically blocking it, but like neutralizing the emanation effect.
Neutralizing the emanation sounds a lot like making it go away by closing my eyes, though, doesn't it?
It's the same
Well, you
thing.
can think of it like, oh well, you guys are obviously taking this into farcical ground, so I'm going to stop my attempt.
Farcical? You just said it was neutralizing the emanation.
Yeah, that sounds like it needs Star Trek theme music.
You need a Death Star for that.
Shout out to Mandela Effect Jonathan Bardsley. Hopefully I've said your name correctly. What's putting the air under pressure other than its own weight? Weight? Nothing, then. It doesn't need a barrier because it's not pressurized. Gas is always pressurized. It's moving around at high velocity, and when it collides with something, it imparts a pressure. That's what pressure is. But without the container, there can be no pressure. The bit that intrigues me, Mandela Effect Jonathan Bardsley, is your association with weight. What's putting the air under pressure other than its own weight? Air doesn't have weight. Gases aren't weighed. How do you weigh a gas? You don't. You can weigh the container that you put a gas in, and you can put a over-exceeding amount, i.e. a high pressure in there, i.e. a high quantity in there, and then the container will weigh more. But the moment you open the container, the gas fills the space because it travels in all directions. Weight is down. Gas isn't going down, go boom, boom, to weigh it. Thank you for the super chat, though. Hopefully I answered your question if it was one.
Liquids and solids with weight, but when we try to quantify gases, we use volume and pressure.
Yeah, weight.
But it's all
Sorry,
downward
sorry.
pressure, though, with the weight and
weight-
gravity.
But weight is defined within gas, within the medium of air. That's how we define weight. We define weight within that medium. Do you know what I mean? It's not that medium is going down as well. It's like, no. Objects weigh more in a vacuum. So that's the end of that. Do you know what I mean? Gas doesn't have weight. It goes around in all directions. There's no singular downward vector. It's total nonsense.
Yeah, but they go in all directions, but they also go down.
Pressure.
Okay.
Yeah, but the pressure.
Let's just address that.
pressure-
Hold on, Brian. Sorry. Arwin throws these things in that demands that I then address them. Yes, all directions includes down. How much does a gas particle going up weigh?
Well, it goes until like the thinness of the mesh becomes too much for it, and then it's kind of like slowed down because eventually it will be pulled back down to weigh on the whole mesh.
Give it me in grams.
Roughly 1 gram per cubic meter.
1 gram per cubic meter. So I take a cubic meter, presumably contained, of standard gas, that would be to say I seal up a box without doing anything, right? Now, all of the gas inside there is all moving in all directions. Now, if I put a scale under the box, I'm weighing the box. But if I put a scale in the box, there's not only gas hitting the scale, not doing anything because it's a standard atmospheric pressure. Atmo what now? But it's also going up. So you can't have a gas weigh a certain gram amount only when it hits the scale, but then what, it doesn't weigh anything when it goes in the opposite direction? It's a negative weight? It's just absurd.
Yeah.
The thing, and just to address that, the particles that at the point they're in contact with the surface at any point will add to the overall weight. Whether they're hitting the top or the bottom at that point, they're contained within it. They're not really lifting it up. Yeah, they're stretching the skin. They're not applying an upward force because the balloon's just sat there, isn't it? So whatever's in it, yeah, there will be some component of its weight because at some point molecules are in contact with the surface, the container. But as you say, Nathan, those ones in the middle, they're not exerting anything anywhere.
But the objects weigh more in a vacuum and less in air. So there is some kind of, I have to use the word, buoyant effect with air, very small amount, due to the movement of the air.
Right.
So they're
But in
different things,
reality,
aren't they? Differentiating between weighing the balloon and the differential of the convention that whenever we weigh something, it is in the medium of air.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what Brian started off with. Exactly. Quick shout out to Chris Berry, who says, water vapour is not gas, end quote. Phil Bell, 2019. Indeed, Chris. Thank you very much for the super chat. Also, Adam Price, who says, episode 1666. Burn him. Thank you for
Nathan,
the super chat,
can I give the global rebuttal to what your point was when you said gas molecules are continuously moving around in all available directions evenly? They say, yeah, but we've got a gradient, Nathan. If what you were saying is correct, it would mean that all the gas, there would be no gradients. It would be evenly distributed, evenly across the whole sky, and it's not.
But that's where temperature comes in. Exactly, Arwen, temperature. Temperature gradient gives us a pressure gradient.
Right. The whole dynamic of it moving in all directions is still going, that effect is going to be influenced by temperature that is locally introduced. So it's going to change where that temperature is, the entire dynamic of how it is spreading out. And that's how the gradient forms.
Okay, let's just qualify what Anthony's asking before I try and attempt to answer it. Sorry, you're asking about a gas pressure gradient. Now, let's all just assume we all understand what gas is. What's the pressure bit mean when referring to gas, Anthony?
It means pressing.
The force the gas exerts on the walls of its container?
Yes, it's got to press against something.
So we've got gas, and the pressure, that would be the force it applies on the walls of the container, and then the gradient that would be formed after you press on the container to have gas pressure to form a gradient. So after containment comes gas pressure, and after gas pressure comes gas pressure gradient. So it's a delta of the original antecedent consequent relationship, which requires containment then.
Yeah, but Nathan, you've swerved my question. My question was, we live in a gradient, and you haven't addressed the gradient bit. You've talked about pressure, but you've not addressed the gradient.
Fine. There's more gas at ground level because that's where it's produced. Obviously, in line with entropy, that would be gas dispersion. That's an entropic effect, aka the second law of thermodynamics. As the gas leaves the ground and disperses into the availability of volume, it becomes more diffused. That's entropy. By essence, that's what an entropic effect is.
I've got a postulation.
Hang on. Let me respond to that. So Bohrler would then say, well, if there's more gas at ground level, that's entirely consistent with the gravitational model.
No.
Gas go down, go boom, boom. That's consistent with gravitational bending pseudo-Riemannian force space-time in Einsteinian geometry. No, it isn't.
No, but they say that because it matches their model, they say that it's gravity. They say gravity pulls it back.
Yeah. Where in their model's
how
gravity?
does it do that?
Show me in their model. You'll have a struggle to get to that bit. Where there's gravity applied. Show me that. Not an equation. Show me applied to a model. You won't even find a model.
No, you'll just find some maths.
Right, and if you find a
Molecular
picture,
gas behavior does not include any mitigation for
See,
Correct.
This is where they would then say, without...
let
this is
Adam
where
just
they would
repeat.
then
Hold on,
say-
just let Adam repeat that so everyone can hear what you just said. Go ahead, Adam.
the model of gas behavior has no accommodation for effects of gravity. Molecules move freely in all directions. They're not subject to any additional force, be it downwards, upwards, left or right.
As a follow-up question before Anthony goes,
Can I?
and in the heliocentric model, is it applicable with the second law of thermodynamics or gravitational quote-unquote laws? Which one's applicable to globe Earth?
It's gravitational. It contradicts
Go ahead,
thermodynamic
Anthony,
law.
then Brian. Or was that it?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were asking Adam. What was the question, Nathan?
No, that was it. You came up with the final rebuttal, which is to say it's in line with our model, and gravity would make gas go down, go boom, boom. Therefore, no containment required. And if we didn't have gravity, we wouldn't have the gas pressure gradient. They've all been addressed now, unless there's any follow-up.
Well, I would like to throw something in there just for the audience.
Yeah, why
as
not?
Go on, Sean, I'll do it. As a basic, gas is given, this is how it's described, kinetic energy by temperature. So the warm and temperature also takes kinetic energy away from the gas. So warmer gas moves more and is more expanded, and cool and gas that's cooled down moves less and is more contracted. So all the little gas, as they were described, molecules, right, all start moving less and all start coming together more with cold temperature. And warm temperature, all these little gas molecules, as it's described, move around more and move apart from each other more. So you have a situation where you have warm at ground level that rises, and that warm air then cools down, becomes more dense, and flows back down the way, replacing the warm air that's down there as rising up. It becomes a cycle. That cycle is known as convection. Now, air from the ground up and above 10 miles up and up into the stratosphere, as they call it, stratosphere, the stratus plane, there's more going on than that. But you can't have any of these things, temperature, pressure, or vacuum, without a container. The container is the antecedent of all those three things. And we do have a low-grade vacuum very high up in the sky, but we couldn't have that if we didn't have a sun and a container and gas.
The stratification of the air as we go up and we talk about these gradients, all of the gases, we'll say, whatever the temperature range throughout, irrespective of height, all of the gases behave as gases. But one of the other components, water, doesn't. It's subject to phase changes. So if you get up really high, there's no way it can last, and you'll see the amount of water. Now, as I said, water is also a universal solvent, so it helps maintain gases as well. This is why you've got, when you
Sorry, can you explain that?
play,
Sorry, I know those words, but I don't know how they link together. Universal solvent. Can you explain
So
what you mean? Sorry to interrupt flow.
Yeah, so it will both dissolve in stuff and dissolve into it. So it helps keep stuff. The water's a very weird thing in all of its phases. It doesn't behave like anything else. So what I'm saying is, where water is applicable within the atmosphere plane at whatever levels, where it's available to be as vapor and not a solid, it will help retain gases, so increase local pressure in that, because it's absorbing, it's dissolving some of the gases in it. So when water's taken out, that's why there's going to be a reduction in pressure there, because they've not got the ability to dissolve. Like I said, this was just something theoretical. I don't know how you would demonstrate it, but from my understanding of how water behaves and interacts with gases, that will contribute to some of the density variations, the humidity, the more humid stuff, you're going to get denser air. So that could have an effect as well if you're trying to comprehend meteorology, because that's what you're talking about at this point now, as opposed to just sticking with the fundamentals of what defines gas pressure. If you're going to then apply it to our air and all of the other systems, it's not just a box of air, is the point I'm making. It's a very complex system which has many different cycles in it, all of which will contribute to these gradients. Gas salting at the ground is another example.
But something you just said there, Adam, you said, you mentioned humidity, but humid air is less dense, is it not? Because it has water vapor.
Yeah, but it's putting vapor in, isn't it? So that's exactly, yeah. But look at the amount of water in there. A lot more water in per litre of air, per decimeter cubed of air. So like I say, it's an interplay of all of these things. It's not just as simple as stating it's X there, yeah. But fundamentally, you've still got to have that premise of containment before you start to discuss the nuances of why you've got variations in things.
I'm going to ask a question that's come from the super chat so far. Thank you very much for the super chat. It says, what object can travel higher up into the air? Okay, I think I understand your phraseology. And do we know its distance? I guess the weather balloon at 24 miles up. Anyone know for sure? Question mark. I don't know for sure so far.
High altitude balloon, maybe around 24 to 30 miles I think is the max. I don't know of anything that went above that. As far as provable things, not like NASA sounding rockets and things. I'm talking about real things. There's nothing outside of high altitude balloons that I'm aware of.
How high did that public rocket go up? The one with the yo-yo mechanism that people thought it was hitting the dome?
That was like aeroplane height, weren't it?
Yeah.
Well, no, the explanation for that
50,
noise...
60,000 feet, I think, whereas balloons tend to be 110, 120, don't they? I'm not sure.
No, I think it was 200. I think it was 220,000 feet, if I remember correctly.
What, that rocket?
I think so. Yeah. I think it was. I think it set a new record for the highest. Something I'm going to find out.
Yeah, look at it, because I was under that impression. That was why people thought when it made a sort of what sounded a bit like a sloshing noise, people were like, oh, it's hit the waters above. And then the manufacturer or the people who created it basically came back and said, no, there's a certain mechanism that's designed to counteract the spin, and it was called something like the yo-yo mechanism, and that's the noise it makes. Which I've got no reason to disbelieve.
Yeah, it was called the yo-yo de-spin mechanism, and it says it has now been officially confirmed that the CSXT Go Fast 2014 rocket reached 385,800 feet above mean sea level, 73.1 miles, and at a top speed of 3,500 miles per hour, which are both new world records. So
yeah,
just for real money, that's 72 miles.
Yeah, I don't believe any of that. You can look down below and see detail on the ground. If you look at high altitude balloons, you can't see that level of detail on the ground. You can't see all that.
Scale, Brian.
Yeah,
got zoom.
That was the weird thing with that video. As you watch it, and when that's what they're saying, when the gyro kicks in to stabilize it, the rate of change of the ground underneath doesn't continue disappearing. Doesn't keep going further away. It's very. I'm surprised at that, Tony, because when I've looked at it, I thought that's not that high. Just from the visual image of that's not double a balloon, triple a balloon height. Do you know what I mean?
I'm with you there, Adam, on that. For me, it's just not. For me, it's not real. Yeah, there's no way they went up that high.
I'm not saying I agree. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just saying that's what the claim is.
Well, just on the thing about water, Adam was speaking about, everything changes. That just to support what Adam's saying there. If you look into meteorology and whatever else, everything changes at what's known as the air boundary layer, which is where clouds form. Now, as I said 100 times before on the show, clouds form higher in the sky in the summer because that temperature point is higher in the sky because there's more heat than in the winter. In the winter, clouds form closer to the surface of Earth, which also gives insulation, let's just say, in the cold months. But after that cloud area, that basic cloud area, you go into what they call the free air or free, I'm going to say it, atmosphere. And here up to cloud level is completely different than what's after cloud level up to about 10 miles. And then it changes again at 10 miles up.
Sounds like we're bloody agreeing for once, Brian. So we'll stop.
We had a slight technical issue with the stream. We lost the stream for about 10 or 15 seconds there. I've got it's actually Geo Shifter is the name of the YouTuber. Shout out to you, my friend. I'll stick it on again because we didn't actually get it, but I'll stick the Go Fast footage back up. I've got it on double speed. Probably won't avoid me a copyright, but there we go. Let's just see if you can. There you go. Let's slow this back down again. Settings 0.75. There we go. Maybe even slower. 0.25. There we go. If you want to see this, guys, you're going to have to see it on the live stream.
Yeah, look at it now. You see, it's when you get to this point, look how things have shrunk so much, and you're expecting some rate of change to continue, but I just don't see it.
Look, at that speed, right? That rocket's going up with quite a bit of speed. So, how many things do you know that's going to hit something with that kind of speed? Even a partially flexible thing is going to basically not crash and crunch the entire rocket upon some impact. Like, even if it would hit that ocean dead on with that speed, it's going to crush, right?
That's what I always had a problem with that. It's no crash.
Right. So that didn't happen.
Can I just get you to be quiet just for 1 second? Okay, that was it. I just wanted you to hear the sound.
Yeah,
That would designate a bigger sound than that. I'm sorry.
Oh, what?
No.
You bloody conspiratard.
What would? It crashing into something or that yo-yo mechanism?
The crash, come on.
Didn't crash
There was
into
no
anything.
crash. That's the
Something
point.
going that fast and it's just going to go boing. Come on.
Right. Exactly.
What does that prove? What does
Nothing.
this prove that we're looking
Zero,
at?
nada,
That
nothing.
it didn't crash into a dome or something.
It doesn't even prove that, does it? Yeah. Have you seen the Hennessy advert? Yeah. Could just as well be like Picard heading in. It doesn't prove anything either way. It doesn't count something in or count anything out. All it says is, I don't know what that video really is showing.
When I flew over Utah, Nevada, and into California, there was hardly no clouds, and I could see underneath me, and it looked very like what that rocket footage is showing. Very like it. I mean, I was like maybe 6 miles up in the air in a commercial airliner. I just can't see how that is another 60 plus miles up. You know what I mean? For me, like, no, it just can't be.
Fair enough.
I've got a little. It's kind of linked. You're thinking about this thing spinning. We were talking about angular momentum earlier. I just want to just reiterate now, if I could, just what angular momentum is. So there's this guy here. I'll just show it with a formula first. So angular momentum is the angular momentum is equal to the mass of something. What's mass? I know. Times the velocity that it's rotating times the radius. So if we change one of these parameters, it's L's going to stay the same. Okay, so if I just press the guy, look, he's going to start himself spinning. All right, so look, and what he's going to do is going to change R. He's going to reduce R, but L has to stay the same. Yeah, so he reduces R, then he has to increase V for L to stay the same. And that's what retention of angular momentum, it relates to the body, the individual body itself. And if it changes in some way, one of these components, its angular momentum will remain the same. Well, that will necessitate, like here, if we reduce the R value, then the angular momentum will stay the same, which means its velocity will increase to compensate for that. That's what ballers are trying to say is something to do with why planes can fly sideways. But there you go.
But within their claim, their globiolis claim, their claim only involves the conservation of linear momentum. The globiolis claim doesn't even involve the conservation of angular momentum. Do you know what I mean? If you know what I mean, their globiolis claim is a linear conservation of linear momentum claim. Doesn't even have the conservation of angular momentum.
It's the differential effect of the retained, your retained one at point of takeoff based on your latitude, isn't it? And then the differentials of that as you travel north and south as to how that would affect your supposed sideways speed. And that's what they call globiolis, isn't it? Which is...
Yeah. You retain the miles per hour speed that's calculated off of the latitude. This is what they claim. And miles per hour is a linear thing. You're retaining it's a conservation of linear momentum they're trying to claim, which completely, the whole point of it is it completely avoids all rotation. Do you know what I mean? So there's no problem east to west, west to east, where there's going to be rotation in a rotating body. There's only an issue north to south, and that's only a little issue. That's corrected with little tiny movements of the plane's joysticks or whatever. You know what I mean? It's nonsense. The whole claim is nonsense, and they avoid the angular part as completely with that claim.
Yeah, I was going to bring up there. I seen an R value in that formula. What is that R value representative of?
It's the distance from the point of axis to the edge. So, yeah.
Right.
In his case, you see, he's rotating on that chair, so his R is the distance from his center point to his extremities, the hammers. So when he brings that R in, you see, the linear momentum, angular momentum will stay the same. So,
What of it, John? Is that a problem?
Well, it seems as if they would need a radial value for that.
if you're going to apply it to Earth, yeah, you'd want an R, wouldn't you? But this is like, so this is the whole point. They can't apply it. We've laughed before. As we said, if you were going to apply that, the best you could do is that if you took off in a balloon or a drone or whatever, if it's going to retain that angular momentum, then the best it would do is rotate once every 24 hours like their supposed ball. It's not something that supports removal of or creation of lockstepedness, if you see what I mean. It doesn't account for that. It can't account for that. And it's just wiki parroted, isn't it, as a response. Whereas if you actually look at what the claim is, it's just nonsensical in relation to counteracting the effects of a rotating ball. So you don't have, or so you do have lockstepedness between the two points. It just doesn't fit, does it? It's describing something very different.
Well, the whole rotating body of a globe, the whole globe Earth is rotating and has to be at a 15 degree per hour rate. Now, that means no matter what latitude you're at on a globe, every part of that globe is all one solid thing that's all rotating at 15 degrees per hour as a rate. So that is the angular rate, isn't it, of the globe Earth? It has to be, because that's what they claim. That's why they claim there's a sunrise and sunset. And why the sun moves around, 15 degrees an hour through the sky. That's their claim, because we're moving at 15 degrees an hour.
But that was what was going to be. That was going to be my next question to Adam. If that is the case, does that mean no Coriolis effect then, as the globe's claiming we've got Coriolis drift? You're just basically saying there isn't any.
Look, I'm saying I don't think I'm making that claim from that point. I'm saying
No.
you can't use angular thing to try and justify it, because it's not applicable. What that conservation of angular momentum is as I showed you, it's that. How would you apply that to different reference frames? It's not talking about different reference frames. It's talking about one thing in one reference frame, and now if you change its parameters, it changes its behavior. Not if you leave that thing that was doing something, you retain its magical properties.
Any more on this? Got a couple more minutes left in the live show.
Just to back up Adam. Yeah, exactly, Adam. Because you must be attached to the rotating body to maintain the momentum of the rotating body. You don't maintain angular momentum when you leave go. When you're holding on to, when you're a child holding on to one of those little roundabouts in these parks, when you leave go of the bars of that, you get thrown off at an angle. You don't keep going around the thing, do you?
If you jump off a roundabout, as a kid, you go flying, don't you, off into the park. What you don't do is stay there and rotate at the same speed as the roundabout that you left, or traverse on the outside of the roundabout magically.
Well, technically speaking, Adam,
I don't know about you guys. I do that all the time.
No, hold on. Adam hasn't considered the fact
Can I
that
say
the
something?
atmosphere moves along with the roundabout, retaining the velocity of the projectile that leaves it, so you don't actually have anything happen. You just retain the velocity of the roundabout. You carry on going with it, obviously.
Unless you're tied to it with a rope. By the way, don't do that. I definitely recommend against that.
Excellent advice to round out the live show on. So with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, hit the share button, liked, commented, subscribed, hit the thanks button, hit the PayPal link, all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!